That's a new thing. All right. So I'd like to learn Shaar Daled, Nefesh Hachaim, Shaar Daled, Perek Chavav. I have two requests with all due respect. Number one is a lot of times, when we learn some Torah, so we immediately fall into something that we knew already and put it into that box and almost stop listening, or at least prejudice everything that we're going to learn based on what we've know before. So in general, that's not a good way to listen or to learn, but it's certainly not good for now, because I think that we're using things that sound like that they're common themes, almost cliche, and understanding it in a completely different way. That's point one. Point two is I just like everyone to be able to put on your philosopher's hat for a few minutes and really try to think esoterically, and Be'ezus Hashem, you'll see that its ramifications are very much lamaisa.
Rav Haber, did you say Kaf Vav?
Chaf Vav, yes, 26.
So according to my notes, we were last on Kaf Gimel.
No, it's not so.
Oh, okay.
Meyer. What the Nefesh Hachaim said in Chaf.
I was also surprised. I thought we were skipping.
Skipping a little bit, but I'm getting the main point of the Prakim. What the Nefesh Hachaim said in Chaf Gimel, Chaf Daled, Chaf Hey, is the Yesod that he supposedly previously said in Perek Yud Aleph of Shaar Daled, and that is a very famous Yesod of the Nefesh Hachaim, and that is that if we would have a situation in the world where not even one person is learning any Torah, so the world would be chayzer l'toyu v'avayu. It's a pretty big statement, but the world can't exist without Torah. Now, he said that in Perek Yud Aleph, and I believe in these prakim, he's not repeating himself, but he's saying something new, like a new angle to that. Not so much, I don't know how you think about the world, going back to tohu vavohu. Does that mean the world would simply disappear? Or does it mean the world would enter into a chaotic situation, which would not be able to exist and blow itself up, maybe with an atom bomb? Or, what does it mean? So I think in Perek Yud Aleph, he meant one thing, in Perek Chavav, he meant another thing. But the yesod is the world could not exist without Torah. And in Perek Chavav, where he synopsizes the last few prakim, so don't worry about the, making sure we cover all the main things in the Shiur. You can certainly read it outside, and you don't need me. Perek Chavav, the Nefesh Hachaim says, "V'taimoi shel davar." The reason why the world would be choser l'tohu vavo if nobody was learning Torah, he even explained previously that's why there are different time zones, so there should be never a point where everybody is sleeping, because then between 2 and 3 in the morning, if it was all the same time zone, so basically the world would go back to tohu vavo. Time shel davar. The reason that the world cannot exist without Torah, and I believe here he's opening up a whole new idea. Starts with what we said in Perek Yud. Shemakor sharsha ha'elyon hanelam shel haTorah hakdosha ma'od na'ala mi'al kol ha'olamos. That the source, the high root, the hidden root of the Torah, meaning where does the Torah come from? Ma'od na'ala mi'al kol ha'olamos, is way above this world that we're living in. We've said these words before, meaning the Torah, yistakel baraisa bara alma. Hashem created the Torah. With the Torah created the world. The Torah came earlier, but we're not now talking about earlier chronologically. we're talking about higher. Na'ala mikol olam, as I will explain in a minute. Reishis v'shoyresh atzilus kadsha yisparach. It is the beginning and the root of atzilus. Soid, the secret of hamalbush ha'elyain. K'mashakasav Rabbeinu isho alekim naira ha'arizal. Now, again, you might want to skip, but I don't want to skip. What's important for this moment to understand, which we do understand if you've been coming to these shiurim, that we live, there are four worlds. There's the world of Asiya, which is where our human experience is, the world that we live in, the world of Yetzira, the world of Bria, the world of Atzilus. And we always look at it sort of also chronologically, almost like what's it called? When you produce something on a line. In other words, what's it called?
Continuum.
Conveyor belt.
Conveyor belt. Yeah.
Continuum.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about a conveyor belt. Meaning, like, in other words, you build a car, right? This was Ford's Chiddush, that like it goes and everybody puts its thing into it. Everybody adds value to it until you end up with a car. And that's the way we look at Atzilus.
Assembly line.
Assembly line. Thank you, David. Thank you. We're talking about, like, there's a neshama. The neshama gets a little bit of bria. The neshama gets a little bit of yitzira, gets a little bit of asiya, and hineni, here I am. Now just think about those four worlds for a second, which are not so nogeya to us. What's only nogeya to us is the world of asiya. We just want to eat the cottage cheese or drive the car, like we're looking at a car. And this seems to be, these four worlds seem to be just, like, if you're a makubal and you know that, hey, before this thing was a car, it was just it was a diagram back in the world, in the lab, in the engineer's lab. So that's the way we look at it, as knowledge. I don't think it's the correct way to look at it, and I think this is really part of what the Nefesh Hachaim is being mechadish here. Above, let me just to finish the diagram here. Above the world of Atzilus, Atzilus is not Hashem. Hashem is beyond. There's nothing that we can understand about it, so we don't know about it. But what we do know is, like, one other piece, and that is the Malbush Ha'elyon. So, nobody gets to Hashem. Nobody understands Hashem. Even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't understand Hashem. But if you're Moshe Rabbeinu, you can get up to the Malbush Ha'elyon. So that means that, you're reaching out of the world of, in terms of Havana, you're reaching out of the world of Asiya that we're living in, into all the way through the four worlds, all the way into the world of Malbush Elyon. The Malbush is a Malbush. And, so, like, even if you can't see me, but you can see my Malbush, and that's probably the Yisoid, or the Soid, I should say, of yeah, everybody with me so far? The Torah, says the Nefesh Hachaim, if you look at the chart, comes from there, from that Malbush Elyon. And he finishes off, Rak shenishtal shala v'yarda kivyachal. The only thing is, the Torah came through the line, and we always call this the Or, because that's what Rav Vital calls it in the name of the Arizal, like this Or that comes through the Bria. Ad la'aretz asher he'ira mikvaydai, comes all the way down to earth, which will be illuminated by his kavod, or the kavod of Torah. Umisara, it was given over, unata hu yisbarach b'soichenu, chaye olam nata b'soichenu, we say when we get an aliyah. So now the Torah becomes us. So there's nothing new in what I'm saying, that the Torah comes from a very, very high place and there's 100 midrashim which give over the sentiment. The Torah comes from a very, very high place and ends up with us. Chaye olam nata b'seichenu. Lozais, let's read a little further. Mayos, from the time that hishtalshul has happened, kol chiyusam v'kiyumam shel ha'olamais kulam, the only way that all those worlds can exist, tali v'oimed rak kefi inyan v'roiv iskenu v'hagyonenu ba. That's why the world is dependent on limud haTorah. If we're willing to toil in Torah and to be machzik Torah and support Torah the way it should be, believe rifyain klal without any weakness, we somehow awaken the highest shirish. Makar hakedusha is v'habrachos lahamshich ulahorik tosefes bracha v'chaye olam. That's how we bring blessing into the world. Chaye olam ukedusha naira al kol ha'olamos. We bring holiness into the whole world. Kol ha'olam lefi erech kedushasai sheyuchol lekabel v'lispol. Now, this was. I want you to realize this was a real mouthful that he just said, because logically speaking, Hashem is mishtalshel the Torah into Hashem created the world, is mishtalshel the Torah into the world. So let's think real over here. So why is the world dependent on us learning the Torah? It's just a metzias. The metzias is that the Torah is mishtalshel into the world, but he jumps here for a moment and tells us that it's not just that the Torah starts from the Malbush Elyain, very nice story, and it comes through Atzilus and Bria and Yetzira and Asiya until it gets to this world. And there's world in the Torah. I hate to be, to use cliche philosophical points, but it's like if a tree falls in a forest, does anyone hear the noise? Meaning, the Torah is the Torah. The Pashtus is the Torah is the Torah. The Torah is in this world. Kol ha'roitza litel yavai v'yitel. Anybody who wants to take the Torah can take it. But that the world should be destroyed, should continue to exist, should turn into tohu vavohu because nobody's learning Torah, that's already a jump. In other words, like if nobody is sitting under the shade of a tree that Hashem created, the tree just ceases to exist. God, you look like you want to say something.
No, the Torah is different. That's all. It's a life force. I don't want to say anything. I want to wait for you to say something.
Okay, so I want to say this. Thank you. I want to say this, that the fact that there are all these worlds going on, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, Malbush, Elyon. This is not a history lesson in the creation of the world. This is what's going on right now, right this second, as I'm talking, as you're listening and talking, right here. Everything we do, our marriage, our children, our house, our car, everything has an aspect of Asiya, Yetzirah, Bria, Atzilus, Malbusha Elyon. This is such an important thing. The whole Nakuda of the world of Asiya, touch, feel pain, suffer, feel simcha, that's all human experience. It's not necessarily reality. And, again, this is where I ask you to put on your existential philosophical hat, because Reb Chaim Volozhin does. And it says that if we perceive something to be a tree, and that's, we've been doing that for thousands of years, calling it a tree and, and understanding a tree. it doesn't mean, and you'll never know the answer to this, that a squirrel in the forest also perceives it in the same way we do. And also, a person who wasn't conditioned does not necessarily perceive suffering and pain the way we perceive suffering and pain. It's our human experience. In other words, our human experience is based on our particular nervous system that says, wow, that hurts. And that's a reality for us. That's a reality in the world of Asiya. And it is a reality. If somebody hits you over the head with a 2x4, it hurts. But that's a reality in the world of Asiya, not necessarily a reality in the world of Yetzira and Bria and Atzilus. In a world of Echad, where there's only Hashem, there's the oneness of Hashem. So who says, let's say, that when we die, Achar Me'ah V'Esrim Shana, our perception of reality will be anywhere near the perception of reality that we have right now. Like, oh, didn't see it that way. And even death itself is just a perception of reality. Meaning, what I mean by that is that, we see what we see, and we see that it ends, and we go to a funeral, and we bury the guy or the woman, and life is over. That's our perception of reality. But let's say Rabbi Akiva, who said, Kol yamai nitzta'arti al pasuk zeh, masai ba liyadi v'kayimena, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol nafshecha. So to him, it wasn't just like, I'm not afraid of death. He had a whole different perception. He had a perception of the fact that I'm in this world. What this world is, mio de'ama, I know I have a job to do in this world. That's why I was put here. I know that I have the perception that I have. That's why I was put here. But I also know there's something much more. I also know that there's a world of Atzilus. There's a world of Malbush Elyon. I know that, said Rabbi Akiva. And therefore, when the Torah says, B'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, is not shver to me. What B'chol adrabah, like B'chol nafshecha means, okay, I'm if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Einstein that said, if you want to sound intelligent, I have to quote Einstein. But I think it was Einstein that said that life is a spiritual being having a human experience. Okay, like if it wasn't Einstein, it was Descartes. But the point being that it's emes. The point is that we're taking the experience that we have for a really short time. And don't forget how big the world is. I believe that's what Einstein was referring to. Don't forget that we're everything that we perceive to be life is a billionth of the universe, and it doesn't even probably count mathematically on a chart of infinity. So our experience is our experience. Wow, this is tough, But it's an interesting thing. Just if I can give a mashal, like a child, before we teach him to, before he knows how to be machalik in the Alma de Peruda, child's full of joy. His experience is like, I don't see any wars. I don't see any hate. So we want to get above that. But that's his perception. A baby's perception is somebody smiling at me, I'll smile back. If I have gas, I'll make a sour face, or maybe I'll smile then also. If somebody tickles me, I'll laugh. We love babies because of that. Like they're totally uncomplicated. It's just because their ability for a human experience, we happen to have big brains, but their ability for an experience is not there. The same thing is true with a duck or a squirrel or even a gorilla. their experience is going to be totally, their description of experience is going to be totally different than ours. Now, like if everybody's done this experiment, whether you've tried to do it as an experiment or not, and like 5 people will see the same thing, and 5 people will see, completely something different when they go and they relate that experience to someone else, because every nervous system is different and every sensation is different. Every emotion is different. Everybody's thinking process is different, self, but it's less different amongst, let's say, our chevra, as amongst all Jews, as amongst all goyim, but everybody's perception is different. So one will look at I'm just giving a bushel, one will look at the same war between Israel and Gaza and say, well, these what's with these Israelis, like another one will look at it and say, kol hakavod, so, it's because they've been conditioned, and it's because of propaganda. I'm talking about the Arab part, so everybody's actually not only seeing it differently, but experiencing it differently. So what do I want with all this, blah, blah. What I want to say something which I believe that the Nefesh Hachaim means here, not just here, but in many, many places. And that is that our human experience, it is what it is. And when you bang your finger, it hurts. And when you're hungry, you're hungry. When you eat something good, it's geschmack. But we also have the ability to climb out of that experience, the human experience, the particular sensation of our nervous system, and understand things. We have this ability because we have a nefesh and a ruach and a shama. We have the equipment to be able to get beyond the human experience. Yes, you understand me? And we could get into the world. We could be masig the world of Yitzira. We could be masig the world of Bria. And we could be masig the world of Atzilus. And even, says the Arizal, and this is what the Mekubalim and Sfas did, even the Malbusha Elyon. He's going to tell you how. So, is everybody following me, or did I just okay?
I'm kind of following, but I just wanted to ask, in the Olam HaSiyah, according to what the Rav just said, what is emes? Like, for example, taking the war we just went through, what is the emes? If it's all
Hashem is the emes.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And that we get through the Torah and through the Talmid Chachamim.
You listen to people talk. I'm just because we use the example of the war. I'm not the politician here, but you listen to people argue. I'm talking about internationally. With the war, they speak more about their experience. If you're a Palestinian, you speak about your experience. That my grandmother used to have a house in Hebron, and she lost her house, and blah blah blah, which is I guess a legitimate human experience. You could argue philosophically. So what? We had a house in Poland and Morocco. Who's given us back to us? But that's a philosophical. Then with the experience is an experience of pain. Or you could speak about the experience of having to run around a bomb shelter into a bomb shelter to protect your children. And what do we do to you already? These are all, we know what the emes is. I'm not questioning that because we have a Torah. I'm sorry, let me just. We know what the emes is, but we don't know the emes necessarily. This is my point, and it's a radical point. We don't necessarily know the emes because that's our experience of it. And the reason is because our experience is just one angle, one dimension, and a very, very low dimension, because my experience is going to be different than your experience, and certainly that different than a rabbit. What our experience is, and if you're Moshe Rabbeinu, you're saying, okay, like my experience of the situation is all the way up to the world of Malbusha Elyon. And I can't go any further because I sof kol sof have a goof. Sof kol sof, I'm human, and I have to. I once I'll tell you something. Like I don't run around speaking anymore. I just don't like it. But I like learning with you. But but there was a time that I did run around speaking a lot. And whenever you ask somebody, an organization or whatever, like, what do you want me to speak about? No matter what. They always say speak about Achdus, you know, like I presume the reason. I mean, Achdus is important. I find it to be a weak topic unto itself, you know. But the reason you speak about Achdus is because that's going to make everybody in the room feel good. Yeah, like in other words, it was like whether you're a Sephardi, Ashkenazi, from, not from, Jewish, not Jewish, you know, we're all echad. So okay, everybody, now you've here's your $500. You did a good job making everybody feel good. But that's what they always want, you know. But I once said this, and I think it's a good point. I once spoke about Achdus. I usually don't in that sense. I once said that and I might have mentioned here before, the only chance we have for any type of Achdus is probably not in the world of Asiya, B'chlal. It's probably only by transcending to the world of Yetzirah, the world of Bria, even to the world of Atzilus in our minds, in our neshama, where we can become echad. And then it can trickle down into this world. You know, so if a chassan and a kala are standing under a chuppah, I'm telling you, all the odds are against them. Like two different people, two different sets of friends, two sets of human experiences, two ways of looking at things. As much as you're going to be compatible, how compatible are as a male and a female? You know, how compatible are people, especially from different cultures and from different, you know, so we try to get it as close as we can, but the fact of the matter is that the odds are against you, unless we explain to the chassan, and I do this under the chuppah, if I'm being Masader Kedushin, unless you explain to the chassan and kala, listen, you know, I want you to know you were once two parts of one neshama, which sounds poetic, but it's not about being poetic. It's about that, you know, we really believe with all of our amunah that there was in the world of Bria one neshama of the whole Jewish people, which split into many, many different parts, which ended up Zachar Nekeva. And then the Zachar Nekeva split up in the world of Yitzir and Asiya, like Adam and Chava was once split up into two. And we're not just saying now go bring it back together. Maybe yes, but what we are saying is da lochem chassan and kala, that at one point you were one. And really the only chance at any attempt at shalom bayis, if somebody's having a hard time with it, is to be able to put aside that which divides us and try to find and then celebrate that which makes us the same. So what it really means is, for the moment, put the human experience and even the science aside, and let's look at it at a level of Yitzira. Let's look at it at a level of Bria. Ad l'malbusha elyon. And I go back to Rabbi Akiva. There was no suffering. Hashem echad. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem echad. Because suffering is a human experience. It's a situation of the nervous system. It's a sensation, which is real, but it's real in this world. So as much as what I'm speaking about right now is, you know, it's just talk, because, you know, if I hurt myself, it hurts. But, and you can't deny the reality of our experience. But at the same time, it's maybe good to know that there is a different reality, and that's what the Nefesh Hachaim is saying here. How can we ever become familiar with this reality, or let's call it a bigger reality than the reality, not a chronological assembly line. Okay, there used to be Hashem, then he made Atzilus, then he made Bria, then he made Yetzirah, and here we are, end users. We've spoken many times about how he made us for a reason. But it's an experience. It's a human experience that our neshama has. Like our neshama maybe is, is eternal. So we get this experience here for whatever, 80, 90 years, 100 years. So we have this experience, manyen, but it's an interesting experience. It has in it joy, it has in it suffering, but it's an experience of, but the big picture is something more. So says Nefesh Hachaim, I want to tell you that the only way to access the larger experience is through Torah. And because the Torah is part of the Malbush Elyon, it's intrinsic to the Bria, and somehow or another with Hasagas HaTorah, maybe we're doing a little bit of that right this second, somehow or another with Hasagas HaTorah, we could expand not only our mind, but expand outside of our mind to a place of Malbush Elyon. And here's the Chiddush in Nefesh Hachaim, different than what he said in Parakut Aleph. It's not the Schus HaTorah or, the world without Torah is nutritionally deficient. It's like some kind of a magical thing. If there would be no, if nobody in the world would learn Torah, then nobody in the world would have the ability to expand beyond their human experience, and there would be total chaos, tohu vavohu, which is what tohu vavohu means. There is no way that we would be able to do chesed for each other. There's no way we would be able to not be at war over territory or politics. There is no way that we would have shalom bayis in the world. The world would be chaotic. It would cease to exist in the sense that it would be self-destructive. Unless there's somebody like you hope, Baruch Hashem, leaving Torah aside for a second, there's somebody in the world who sees a bigger picture. Yeah, like somebody who sees, so it's supposed to be maybe a president or a prime minister or a gadol, but what the Nefesh Hachaim goes on to say, that even if that person who's learning Torah, and this is the magical part, even that person who's learning Torah and sees a bigger picture, the Rabbi Akiva, or the Mashiach, if you will, sees some kind of a bigger picture, even if he's not able to get on TV and express it, it's still a bigger picture in this world, and the world is worth continuing to exist for this one person who's getting it, who's accessing a higher world completely. So again, it's not a magical thing, the world's going to disappear. It's tohu vavohu, to be medayik into the words. Tohu vavohu means a complete irvuv. Before Hashem created the world and created the human experience. It's interesting that, Adam Harishon and Chava, the first ones to have the human experience, said, okay, they sort of cut off from the Shemayim and said, we want Das. So, we want to be like Elikim. The second couple that had the human experience, Cain and Hevel, so killed each other. One killed another. It's when you take the whole human experience of this world and say, this is the whole thing, this is the chet. That's the chet. And until Avram Avinu, who understood that, wait, we got to get out of this. Mashal Adam Shara Bira Doilakas, Amar, Mi Habira has mi Bal Habira Hazu. Until you get somebody who's able to look at the world and say, hold on, hang on a minute. Like, okay, I see a bira, and I spoke about this. It's not, and just say skyscraper. I see a bira doilekas. I see a place on fire. Mi Bal Habira. So until you're able to think deeply into something and feel deeply in something and get out of our own emotions, then you haven't touched the reality of it. You're just dealing with your human experience, and I don't like it. I don't like the experience I'm having, or I like the experience. The other thing that happens if you're just working with your human experience is you will be chayta. One will go after short-term taiva. Isn't it amazing, like people fall into, I always think about this, like how people fall into like, God forbid, affairs or different types of Geneva. Like, don't you see like a bigger picture that this is going? Forget about God. It's going to ultimately hurt you. It's going to hurt your family. It's going to hurt your children. It's going to hurt. Like this is like completely being absorbed into what they view as the experience. Right now, I'm going to get money. Right now, I'm going to get gratification. So, like a little bit, like just climb out of like the Yetzer Hara of the moment and climb to a bigger place. But how far can we climb? How can we climb? We can climb all the way to the Malbus Elyon. Now, Nefesh Hachaim, one last thing here. Nefesh Hachaim asks in the next paragraph, like, why would Torah be the way to do this? Meaning, like, okay, this Torah, maybe we can understand it, but it's hard to understand with Arba Avos Nezikin and Parshas Mishpatim, how we're getting to a higher consciousness over here. But we can get to it, we can understand it. But shouldn't tefillah better be the way to do this? Like if we want to expand out of our own human experience, wouldn't Shemona Esrei or some type of a silent meditation, if you will, be the better way to like climb out? And in fact, I believe that this was one of the problems that the Hasidim saw with the Nefesh Hachaim and with Talmidei Agra, etc. Volozhin. But listen to what he's saying. If we learn Torah, I'm here in the third paragraph, if we learn Torah with weakness, you are depriving the entire Torah, is not getting through. And everyone according to his experience, according to his personality, according to his perception, Roisasim urefuyim chas v'shalom. V'im chas v'shalom hayinu kulam manichem maznichan oisim lisasik ba mikol v'kol. If there would come a time when everybody just abandons Torah, meaning is just Isaac in our experience in this world, gam ha'ilama is kulay karega hayum misbatlin mikol v'kol chas v'shalom. Now here, watch this. This is what I want to say. Masha eikein b'chol ha'mitzvos v'afilu mitzvos ha'tfilah. This type of expansiveness to the four oilamos that he talks about in paragraph 1, and that's where we're climbing with tefillah, and that's what we're doing with mitzvahs, not the same thing. Masha'en came b'chol ha-mitzvahs v'afilu mitzvahs ha-tefillah. You see tefillah, by the way, davening, is mugbal in zman. You daven shachar, you daven mincha, you daven marv, before chatzos, after chatzos, plaga mincha. My zmanim. Torah is not mugbal and zman b'chlal. It's always the time. Shegam im hayu, this is the statement, Shegam im hayu chas v'shalom kol Yisrael meinichen ba'oizven milihispalel ba'yizbarach, even if the whole world would stop davening, loy hayu chayzer my lames havor zelatayu v'vayah. It's a radical statement. And if I have 5 more minutes, I want to explain the next paragraph. We can go over this. But first, let me say the following. We've been learning a lot on Shabbos, especially Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai is after the cave, before the cave. But what did he see? Menichin chaye olam v'oiskin b'chaye shah. How is it defined usually? Open the art scroll. Why are you dealing with this world when it's temporary? Why don't you deal with Olam Haba? Do something important. Until he went into the cave again, and he came back and he says, oh. And what did the Baskel say? Lahachriv Olami Yatsasa. What did I take out of the cave to be Machriv of the world? So the regular way, if you will, the pedestrian way of understanding Rav Shimon Bar Yochai and the Taina against him is Chaye Olam, which Rav Shimon Bar Yochai used this term often, means olam haba, and Chayei Shah means olam hazeh. I'm telling you, if you remember one thing from what I said today, that's not what he meant. And that's not what the words mean. Chayei Shah means our experience. Chayei Olam means beyond our experience, beyond our sensation, beyond what feels good right now. Chayei Olam. You don't have to die to get to Chayei Olam. It's not like we're preparing here for Olam Haba only. In the world Gufa, and what was Rav Shimon Bar Yochai? Tayrasa Yom Nasei. And what did the Baskel say? No, you can have, you don't have to, you can have that experience right here with Torah. And he was masking to that Basov. But the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the giant of giants, the Makubal of Makubalim, the father of all Makubalim, what he was saying is, there's Chayei Olam and there's Chayei Shah. Don't be Isaac in Chayei Shah when you could be Isaac in Chayei Olam. Correct, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, correct. Because Chayei Shah means you're only dealing with your personal experience that you feel right now. Oh, that hurts. And like you could be very mindful of the fact of how you feel about things. Does this hurt? Does it give me joy? Does it give me pain? Very nice. It's a gift from Hashem. But you can also be mindful of something which we don't experience. And when he came out of the cave, and he saw people being Zoreya B'Shas and Chayrish B'Shas Charisha and getting involved with farming and working in Parnas. And what are you doing? Like, you're dealing with your own Dalit Amos, with your human perception. Get out of that. Get involved with Chayei Shah. And I have a feeling, by the way, that I'd like to bring a riot to it, but when Avram Avinu looked at Avodah Zarah, he looked at all the pagans making idols and worshiping the idols. I think that was also that whole thing of paganism is also Chayei Shah. Oh, this is the god of fire, this is the god of thunder, this is the god of this, if I worship it. All living in this little world that we're in, as opposed to expanding out. Avram Avinu said, in a way, who made the bira? I mean, who made the idols? Who made us? Where does all this come from? And expanding into the world of Yetzirah, into the world of Bria, which is the Olam of Neshamas, the world of Atzilus, and then Moshe Rabbeinu, not Avram Avinu, but Moshe Rabbeinu finally expanded into the world of Torah itself, which is the Or Elyon, Oyraisa. So that cannot be done, says Nefesh Hachaim, with tefillah. Yes, with tefillah, on some level we can connect. You could connect, but you can't access. With tefillah, which is now people have accused the Nefesh Hachaim of saying, you don't have to daven, you just have to learn. Of course, that's not what he says. You daven with a lot of kavan, I'm sure. And the Gemara says, "Alavai sheyispalel adam kol hayom." But of course, you have to daven. But maybe he was misunderstood. But there were maybe the Baal Shem Tov, maybe the Balatanya and the Magid Mimizrich felt like, but what's, where's our expression? So good, Emes. They also learn Torah. It's a very thin-walled mastekas. But the point is, we're learning Nefesh Hachaim. The point is, here's the message that when we're feeling something, we're feeling it. Whatever you're feeling. When we're feeling something, expand out of that feeling. I think that by his spineless and limud Torah, it's something that can be done. It's a can do. And when you expand out of that feeling, like if somebody's having an argument with their husband or their wife, if you expand out of the feeling, if you're able to do it, I'm not able to do it always, but if you're able to do it, so then you find achdus in a different place. And all of a sudden you begin to understand the person. And even if they're wrong, you can understand them. And you're out of the human experience. And if you're analyzing, the politics is the ultimate in this world operations. But if you can expand out of it, and like say, see a bigger picture, and then a bigger picture, and then a bigger picture, all the way to the world in Malbish Elyon through Torah, like, hey, what's really happening over here? And you have peace. And I'll tell you something very, very quickly, and then I'll let you go. That the Rav Chatzkel Levenstein, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, was the Mashgiach Apanovich, previously Mir in Shanghai. He was in Shanghai, and he described how in Kelm, the Kelmer yeshiva was closed by a pogrom, and the Kelmer, I don't think it was the Alter from Kelm, I think it was his son, if I believe. But he describes how the Kelmer pulled everyone together, and they knew they were going to die. And he instructed them, Chaskel Levenstein said this, he instructed them about the mitzvah of dying al Kiddush Hashem, Jews. You know, he didn't instruct them about, interestingly, you know, about how to get the hell out of here, like how to escape. That also maybe. But what he instructed them was that die al Kiddush Hashem, and he told them all to say, what? What would you think if you were the Alter of Kelm? He told them all to say Aleinu l'shabeach together. That's before a chiddush from Kelm. Say Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol says kedula liyotzer breishis lo yasanu k'mishchayso adama samcho kenu kohem v'garelenu kol amanim shem mishtachavim lahavel urik. And if you say the whole Aleinu l'shabeach, if you do so at mincha today, and you say it and actually look at the words, you'll see it's all about that. What you need to do is you need to meditate on the echad of Hashem. That's the whole Aleinu is about. Yikablu kulam es ol malchusecha v'sim aleich Aleinu. Meditate on the nemar v'hoya b'yaymahu Yashem l'melech al kol haaretz. It's all about seeing a bigger picture. You know, that's what the Aleinu L'Shabeach is about. I'd love to learn it together. The Aleinu L'Shabeach, important to know, was written by Yoshua ben Nun right before the Milchama with Yericho. And Al-Kei Nekave, which is the second parak, which was written by Ochan, Al-Kei Nekave, Ochan, Ayin Chaf Nun, who took from the spoils of Yericho, yeah? And this is what he said before he died. Al-Kei Nekave. And it all comes down to, we say both, because it all comes down to the Achdus Hashem. But just a very jarring statement of Rav Chatzkel Levenstein, where he describes this. And he says that many people died al Kiddush Hashem by the Nazis, Yimach Shemam v'Zichram. But they died al real Kiddush Hashem. And we wondered, I guess he was there, we wondered who was actually better off. Those that died al Kiddush Hashem or those that survived. Now that's a very big picture look. To be able to see the B'chol Nafshecha, to be able to see, like, it's actually mind-boggling. But that's what he said. Mi yodeya, mi godel mi mi, and who's more fortunate than the others to see the way they died al Kiddush Hashem. So to end on a happy note, let's try to create some echad, you know, like to try to get back, at least to be conscious of the echad. We're spending time learning Torah because we believe Hashem echad u'shma echad, and this will bring a hashba of toiv and shalom in the whole world. Okay, thank you for listening.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Koyach, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful Erev Shabbos.
Amen.
I don't know how.
Good Erev Shabbos, a good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Thank you so much.